Well, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to your Lake Fork Guide. We got a good one for you today. This technique is probably caught more bass in the history of bass fishing, maybe than all the other techniques combined. Certainly it has the most fish catches of any technique. Today we're going to break down in depth how to fish the old plastic worm. Since the dawn of time, or at least the dawn of bass fishing time, people have been catching fish on plastic worms. I mean, these plastic ribbon tail style worms, now this is a huge one right here, but these plastic ribbon tail style worms have been the #1 bait from the beginning, and I would say that they're still the #1 bait. In fact, every one of us probably started bass fishing dragging one of these around. I mean, it's almost hard pressed to find somebody that didn't start by dragging a plastic worm around more than anything else. It's the simplest technique. You can fish it anywhere, so it's super versatile. Any type of cover, any depth of the water column, it doesn't matter. You can fish it anywhere. You can swim it. You can do all kinds of things with it. And that is where the key lies. It's about knowing how to fish it when you're in certain situations, whether you've got a different type of cover or a different depth of the water column, whatever it is. It's about knowing how to fish it. And right now we're in the dog days of summer, and so in the dog days of summer we really like these big ribbon tail worms. 10-inch and 12-inch Berkley Power Worms is probably the best ribbon tail worm of all time, in my opinion. Just old school. It's worked from the beginning of time. In fact, the Berkley tournament that is held at Lake Fork every October, the vast majority of those have been won on a Berkley Power Worm. So if that tells you anything right there, but it is definitely a staple and something that we throw every summer. As you get into summer, fish's metabolisms really go up. They pick up. They're cold-blooded animals, so the hotter the water gets, the more their metabolism speeds up. As it does that, they look for bigger meals. Therefore, a bigger worm is something that we can fish in any offshore cover we find. It offers a big meal to the fish. It stays in their face a long time. If they're getting tired and feeling exhausted from being in the hot water, it still hangs around them long enough to give them ample opportunity to decide to go ahead and bite that big bait. It's something that I think every guide on the lake fishes every summer, so it's something that you need to know how to do. And for Lake Fork and East Texas and big fish and big cover like we got out here, you got to be set up right for success. So let's start with the setup right now. First, red shad has been a color I've used a lot lately, but blue fleck, plum apple, red shad, and green pumpkin or watermelon seed. If you've got those 4 or 5 colors, you've got every color you would ever need, especially in East Texas. Some other areas I'm not familiar with, maybe there's something that works. But if you've got those 4 or 5 colors in East Texas, you are set up for success in any conditions with a ribbon tail worm. Like I said, I've been using red shad here lately. This is about a 10-inch worm. Now I'm actually buying the 12-inch worms and just taking about 2 inches of the head and pinching it off. The only reason I'm doing that is because they didn't have the 10-inch worms in stock when I went to buy them. They just had the 12-inch. You will get more worms per package if you buy the 10-inch worm, so I would recommend that. The rest of the gear, pretty simple. Around a 1/2 ounce tungsten weight is what I like to use. Of course, you can see my bobber stop that I've got ahead of the tungsten weight right here. And then about a 1/2 ounce tungsten weight. I believe this one is 7/16 actually, but if I'm within a 16th, that's close enough for me. I ain't that detailed on it. So about a 1/2 ounce tungsten weight. 5/0 straight shank offset round bend. Straight shank offset round bend hook. Oh, it's a worm hook, guys. It looks like that right there. Get you one that looks like that. Get it in at least 4/0. I really prefer 5/0 for these big worms, these big bass on Lake Fork. 20-pound fluorocarbon line, and I'm throwing it on a 7.3 heavy action rod and a high-speed gear ratio reel. About a 7.5 to 1 is going to be the real speed that I'm throwing it on. But that 7.3 heavy rod to me is just perfect for worm fishing. You can overpower a worm. Some of the action we like to impart on it, you get too big of a rod, you can overpower it. It will cause you to have more break-offs when you set the hook and a fish is in cover if your rod is overpowered as well. I really like the 7.3 heavy action rod. I think it's just right for Texas rig worm fishing. Types of areas that we're going to catch them in the summertime on a big worm. Man, that is anywhere you can find them on your electronics and then some. You can catch fish from shallow to deep in the summertime on a big 10-inch worm. I'm just going to tell you right now, you can. You can go up dock fishing with a 10-inch worm. You can fish grass edges, lily pad fields, almost anywhere. You go night fishing with a 10-inch worm, get around lighted docks or those green underwater lights. A 10-inch worm will work there as well. Where I'm primarily using it is the offshore structure that we've been talking about in all our videos, and it can be any type of offshore structure, points, hump, roadbed, pond dams, you name it. It can be all that. But mainly it's, you know, a big drop off with a plateau on top, and we're graphing fish on those. Anywhere I can find that, Texas rig worm will work, even in open water when there's no brush or timber. Now, I do think they shine and are head and shoulders above other baits when you're fishing them in brush piles or standing timber. And one thing that happens is we get later and later in the summer, these fish will suspend in the big trees that are below the surface. The trees that are still fully grown, all their limbs are on them. These big fish will get in there. You can find those fish, and they may be in 40 or 50 or 60 foot of water on Lake Fork, but the top tops out in 20 or 15, and you can see all the limbs in 15 to 20 foot of water. Well, those fish will suspend. It'll look like a daggum Christmas tree, and there were bells on it with all the dots on your down scan when you look at that tree as you graph over the top of it. When that happens, I actually use the same exact setup, but I drop my weight down to a 1/4 ounce, okay? And now what I can do is slowly work that worm through the limbs of that tree where those fish are suspending. That is a staple pattern on Lake Fork, guys, and I'm sure it works on other places too. But anytime you get to August and even September, when those fish are really suspending at the end of summer, that is a staple technique and a staple type of area to throw a big worm and get a really big bite in. Sometimes get a lot of bites on the right day. So those are the types of areas. So let me get up on the front deck, show you guys a couple different ways to work this worm and hopefully help you catch more and bigger fish. So if you're fishing in open water, like this is just the side of a point right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and make a long cast. Now that can change. If I'm fishing a brush pile, I just wanna cast 10 or 20 foot past the brush pile. If I'm fishing a specific tree that I've seen on my graph, I just wanna cast 10 or 20 foot past that tree. You don't always have to make a long cast with a plastic worm. That's kind of a different deal. For most offshore techniques, you wanna make a long cast. But this one, if you're target oriented, you don't have to. In this case, we're just fishing the side of a point where we've graphed some fish. So we'll go ahead and make a long cast. Now we're gonna let that bait fall all the way bottom. If you notice, as that bait landed, I kind of pulled my rod to strip some line. I wanna make sure that bait falls straight down at the end of that cast and it doesn't pendulum back to the boat. So we're just gonna sit here and watch the slack run away while keeping some slack in the line, and still falling, still falling. We're in pretty deep water, about 25 foot of water. There it is, it's on the bottom. All right, now, a couple different ways that you can fish this worm. The easiest thing to do, especially like kids do this and they catch them doing it, whatever, is just dragging it. You know, just drag the worm. Now, right now we got a little breeze going, right? So if it was calm out here, you just drag it straight up. You can feel everything great dragging it in an upward motion. But with the breeze blowing, it blows that little bow in your line as you drag it. It makes it hard to feel anything. So what I like to do is actually take my rod, point it down, and drag it low and to the side. It's gonna take that bow out of my line and gonna allow me to feel the worm contacting the bottom, and if I get a bite, it's gonna allow me to feel that bite much better. So just slowly dragging it is the first way to retrieve it. Now the other way that I really like to retrieve it, especially in open water like I'm in now, is hopping that worm. It's kind of like stroking a jig, but it's just hopping a worm. A little more subtle than when you stroke a jig. Just give it a couple little hops and let it fall. Hop, hop. So I'll let it fall back down. I'll kind of check up on it, make sure nothing's there, and then hop, hop. Just giving it some good hard pops, making that worm jump and then fall down. A lot of times you'll go like this, and then as soon as you do, you'll feel pop. They'll hit it right after you get done hopping it. As soon as it starts falling, that's when they'll hit it, when you're hopping that worm. And that's really about the only two ways that I like to fish worms out deep on offshore structure in the summertime. Now, if you're fishing shallow, then that brings around swimming a worm. Do not discredit swimming a worm. It's an old school technique. It's been forgotten about. Not a lot of people do it anymore. If you're fishing around scattered grass up shallow in the summertime, or if you're fishing around boat docks that's got relatively shallow water and you're fishing the shade, you can get that worm out across that grass flat and actually fish it just like you would a shallow water swim bait, man. You'll just throw it out there across your flat or up under your dock, wherever you're fishing it, point the rod right at the bait and just slowly reel it. And if you'll point at it, it'll bulldog through any cover it comes into contact with. If you hold it to the side, it'll let that rod bend, it'll load up on that grass or vegetation. You point right down the line like that right there, and that sucker will bulldog through everything. Swimming a worm like a swim bait up shallow in the summertime, y'all don't be telling nobody it's top secret guide stuff. I'm telling y'all now. That's just between us, you know what I mean? Last thing is the hook set. Hook set, feel like it's probably pretty obvious with a worm, but it's important. It's really, really, really important that you lean on them with a hook set. And I'm gonna try to walk you guys through the proper technique of a big hook set. Because I see a lot of people mess it up and lose big fish on guide trips. They lose a fish of their lifetime because of this. So if I'm dragging that worm along and I get a bite, right here I get a bite, I'm gonna drop my rod tip, reel up my slack. I'm feeling for that fish now. I'm gonna start to lightly lift. If that fish is swimming in any direction, I'm gonna re-drop my rod, put my right foot behind me, and I'm going to swing this rod as hard and fast as I can to my right collarbone. All the way to my right collarbone. See that? So if that fish is out there, where's my rod pointed? Away from the fish. So many people I see go like this, and the hook set stops right there. And when they do that, if it's a good fish and it pulls back at all, now they've got almost no bend in their rod. If that fish shakes his head, which they always do as soon as you hook them, if that fish shakes his head at all with that rod position right there, he's got a real good chance to come off. When you set that hook, follow through, get that rod pointed away from him. Now when that fish is out there, the rod's away from him. Now if he starts to run this way, I'm gonna take the rod over my head, and still, now the fish is out here, the rod's pointed where? Away from him. Keep the rod pointed away from the fish. The whole principle behind that fundamental, and the reason it's so important, it's all about rod bend, guys. If that rod is bent like this, and that fish shakes his head, see if that fish is over here in my hand, see where the rod's pointed away from him? If that fish shakes his head, he can go nowhere. But if that rod is pointed slightly back towards that fish, and he shakes his head, he gets slack in the line. Hopefully that's all showing up on the camera there. But it's all about pointing that rod away from that fish. It's all about keeping that bend in that rod. And then when that fish goes that way, you just go this way and keep that bend in the rod. You're just always working to keep that bend in the rod. You got big line, you got a big hook. Don't worry about straightening anything out, breaking anything. You're not going to, man. Tie your knots good, set your drag down tight. Manhandle them suckers back to the boat. Y'all know what I mean? Man, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, it's an old school technique. It's a really simple technique. Hopefully today we're able to provide a few details to make you a little bit better worm fisherman, and hopefully that'll help you catch more and bigger fish, because you guys know that's what we're all about here at Your Lake Fork Guide, man. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, we'll see you next time right here on Your Lake Fork Guide.